We've got issues with the mic, so I'm just going to talk as loud as I can. If you can't hear me, then put up your hand and I'll talk a little bit louder. So, my name is Frances Boyce. I'm the current chair of BeSafe Taranaki. We're really privileged today to have you all in the room to listen to our first Be Engaged session that we've had in about 18 months. So, obviously, we're good. Good. Obviously, because of COVID last year, we were sort of cautious in proceeding with holding events. These lockdowns, we don't know when they're happening and where they're coming from, so obviously they do affect everyone being in the room, but we're very lucky today that we're at level 1 and you're all here and can participate in our session this morning. Just a few housekeeping things. When you arrived, we obviously marked you off. We all hope that you use the QR code to sign in and grab your name tag. There is the toilets over here, and if there is an alarm that goes, then the emergency exits are here and here, and there's also the emergency exit over there. We would convene outside, just outside the building at the front here. So yeah, that's the housekeeping stuff done. So our topic today is around looking at what's happening here locally post-COVID, what's happening with our workforce, how are we coping and dealing with the situation of COVID, and what are we doing here locally in terms of our workforce. So just a couple of things to think about. Dr. Hilary Bennett, you might know of Dr. Hilary Bennett, she works closely with the Business Health and Safety Leaders Forum. She suggested that the impact of COVID, or the impact of the pandemic, is, and the lockdown, is like an incident that has happened to our mental well-being. So it hasn't been physical, it's been psychological. And so therefore our response to that should be no different than a response to any sort of critical incident. So how are we managing our way through? And I'm sure our speakers today, we have Brian Ropitini, Marta Consulting, and David Langford from the Plymouth District Council. They're going to talk about resilience and about what we're doing here locally to work ourselves out of obviously the impact of the COVID and the pandemic and what's happening with our workforce. So I'll let them give you all the details. This is an active session, so you know, as much as you're here to listen to these guys, if you've got any questions, I'm sure that they'll be happy to take them. They'll probably advise you then they're happy to take questions, but you're here today because you're part of our community and you're part of obviously what we're doing locally, and we want to ensure that we are all in the conversation about our future. Just another couple of things. The Business Health and Safety Leaders Forum also conducted some research recently just to understand the impact of COVID on organisations and their responsiveness. They found that the key lesson is around people and communication. So when you think about your own organisation or your own business or your own network, actually tapping in and talking to your people and understanding where they are with their mental well-being is critical to us actually having some realisation about what's going on. I will stop there because you're not here to listen to me. You're here to listen to our speakers today. So I'll pass to Brian Ropitini and he will talk to you about, I suppose, resilience and how he sees the world post-COVID.
Thanks, Francis. Kia ora koutou, everybody. Ko Brian Ropitini to Boinai. Hey, before I get underway, I just need to change this presentation over and then we'll be good to go. Okay, for those who haven't met, and there's a lot of familiar faces in the room today, so it's really nice to see everybody again. I'm not a professional consultant yet. I actually, so you're not up here listening to somebody spout off on something that they have no knowledge on. I spent 34 years in the petrochemical industry, working for Methanex both in New Zealand and overseas, and I retired, resigned, whatever you want to call it, in the end of 2019. So to be up here today speaking about COVID in the workplace is a little unusual because I was actually unemployed all the way through COVID last year. And so my observations really were limited to what happened in my own household. And so in our house, there was 5 of us. There was myself, my wife, my sister-in-law, and my 2 teenage sons, one who we had to drag back from Wellington from university. Has that gone off? Yeah. Okay, can you still hear me? Yeah. Okay, I'll shout. And my wife and I used to get jealous watching all these home videos that people were posting of families doing really cool things together and videoing them and sharing them on social media, you know, playing games and singing songs and dance lessons and things like that. Because our experience in our home was there was actually 5 bubbles in place, and we didn't actually do much interaction at all. The 2 teenage boys were grumpy as anything. My sister-in-law shut herself in the room for the whole 6 weeks, and me and my wife, we just kind of kept to ourselves and did our own thing. So our experience was nothing like what was being published on social media and on the news and all these families coming together. So what I want to talk about today is my observations through that. And I did go out and I did go and speak to a number of different companies, both locally, outside of Taranaki, and one company overseas, and just got their view in terms of how COVID impacted them and some of the things that they did to ensure the safety and well-being of their employees during that huge time of upset. Before I go there, I just want to tell a little story. A while ago, I was talking to somebody who was really excited because they'd just been fishing and they'd caught the biggest fish they'd ever caught. How many fishermen in the room, or fisher people in the room? Okay, so imagine now that I'm talking about somebody who's caught the biggest fish they've ever caught. What are you thinking about? Hopefully people are thinking about how big is a big fish, or you're imagining the type of fish that this person may have actually caught. There it is there. Are you disappointed? Some of you feeling probably ripped off or cheated because you thought there was going to be a picture of something huge, right? Now, when I think about a big fish, I'm not much of a fisherman. I don't catch many fish, let alone anything that you can eat. So in my mind, when I hear someone talk about a big fish, I imagine something like that. Okay? How many people would imagine something kind of that size would be a really big fish? Now, for the professional fisher people in the room who go out and catch these giant things, they're probably imagining something like that, all right, or bigger. So what is it that stirs up the images in your mind when you hear people talk about certain things? This is a question. Anyone can shout out an answer anytime they like. What sort of things give you the thinking or the thoughts or the images when people talk about certain things? What shapes what you think? Your experiences, right? So on the topic of fish, if you're used to catching big fish, you're imagining something at least as big as the biggest fish you've caught, or even bigger. If you're not a very experienced fisherman like myself, probably thinking of something a little bit smaller. But no matter what you were thinking, when I showed that first picture, everybody felt a little ripped off or a little disappointed, right? Because it doesn't seem to be a very big fish. Is that true? Yeah. Oh, good. Can you hear me okay down the back? Okay. So what about if I show you that now? What if I complete the picture for you? You still feel ripped off? You understand now why somebody would be excited that that was a big fish? Right? Do you think this little fella here thinks that he's caught a huge fish? Of course he does. So what's changed your thinking now? Okay, here I am, I'm a consultant up here telling a big story and you're disappointed with the outcome. Right? But now that I complete the picture, are you still disappointed with the outcome? The fish is still the same size. But what's changed? The context has changed, right? The context now, it's in perspective because you see the fisherman is 2 or 3 years old. He hasn't got much fishing gear there really. It's a pole with a hook on the end of it. And he's pulled up a fish. And you can see the excitement on his face. So now you don't think that I've ripped you off. Now you empathise with the story, you get the story, and you agree. In this context, that was a pretty big fish. Pretty nice fish to catch, right? Are you with me? Yeah. Okay. There's a point to this. How many times have you heard this? Your safety and well-being are our highest priority, or your health and safety is our highest priority. How many people say that in their workplace? Right? Everybody's heard it before. So as a leader of an organisation, when you say that, That's a pretty big fish to be telling, isn't it? It's a pretty big fish story. Our highest priority. So how do I confirm for myself that the message I'm intending to get out to everybody is the same? And that expectations are going to be met, and when we actually deliver on health and safety being our highest priority, that people aren't going to be disappointed or feel that we've sold them something that wasn't what we meant. Are you with me?
Yeah.
How do you do that? How many people in the room here are leaders of their organisations and responsible for communicating things like this? Put it up to all of you. Don't be shy. So what do you do to ensure that when you say things like this, that you've aligned expectations with your intention? What does your safety and well-being as our highest priority actually mean? How far are you prepared to go as a leader or as an organisation to make that a true statement? Who determines the standard that you apply? Who determines whether or not it is actually your highest priority? The individual receiving the message, right? They're the one who are ultimately going to judge whether or not health and safety is your highest priority or not. And what are they going to use to judge whether that's a true statement or not? Your behaviour, right? What about if I say it 1,000 times? No, the first time I do something that doesn't meet their expectation, not mine, their expectations, they will not see that as a true statement anymore. Okay? Right. Now, I know some of you are thinking, you know, we're here to talk about other things, and we'll get onto them in a moment. So with this, your values and culture, and let's call this your company character. Okay, your company character. Okay? I like to think of company character as being your values and your culture. And that's how people will describe you or feel about you, the type of company that you are. When people describe your character, that's actually what they're talking about. Okay? If you have great company character, you will have highly engaged, motivated employees who feel safe because they are treated with respect, they are valued, and they are treated with a sense of dignity, or they maintain their dignity when they're in the workplace. So let's think about this for a second. Who likes to be treated with respect? Right? Anybody think it's a great day at work when you've been treated in a disrespectful way? Okay. What about to feel valued? Who likes to feel valued when they come to work every day? Of course we all do, right? There's this funny thing about human beings, is that humans desire place and purpose. Alright? You understand what I mean when I say that? People desire place and purpose. They want to be able to fit in somewhere, and they want to understand that what they do actually creates some value, or some people see value in it. What do you do with things that you value? You look after them? How do you treat them? How many people, so when I was a kid growing up, our family, we didn't have a lot, and so I knew what it was like to wait for stuff. So to go for a birthday or a Christmas, or multiple birthdays and Christmases without getting what I really wanted. I remember waiting 3 years for a bike. Okay, every birthday, every Christmas, this might be the one that I finally get a bike. And when I finally did get that bike, I looked after it, because I knew that that would be the only bike that I would ever get from my parents. Alright? So if I left it out and got stolen, they weren't going to the warehouse the next day and buying a new one. Or if I wrecked it, it would stay wrecked until I'd saved up enough money to get it fixed. So I valued that bike because it gave me some freedom. It meant I didn't have to walk everywhere. I could actually bike to places, get there quicker. And so I valued it, I looked after it, I cleaned it, I put it away, I did all these things because it was important to me. So companies that value their employees, they look after them. Alright? If I value what Alistair, my old friend from Ethnics, if I value what Alistair does, I'm going to look after Alistair because he's an important part
of our organisation and the value that we create. So part of valuing them means creating a safe working environment for them as well, right? Because I'm not valuing them if I put them in harm's way, or don't create an environment where they can feel safe, both physically and mentally. Okay? And so if you do these two things, respect and value, people will maintain their sense of dignity. Okay? But when you lose everything else around you, what's probably one of the last things that you really want to hold on to? Some sense of dignity. Okay? You want to maintain some sense of place in the world that you're in, so that at least there's that sense of dignity there. So organisations that have great company character will generally have employees who feel respected, valued, and maintain their dignity. And when you have those two things working together, there's a bridge or a link that brings these two together. And this is working in a high trust environment. Okay? If you take trust out of the equation, or you have low trust, it's very difficult to bridge this and deliver that. Okay? And when we talk about trust, we're talking about two things. We're talking about character and competency. So the first thing is, do people trust the person that I am? Do they trust my intentions? Do they believe that I'm a straight talker? Or do they think I have a hidden agenda? Or trying to do something in the background that may not actually be as good as what I'm trying to present? And secondly, am I competent to actually do the things that I need to do? Okay? That tends to be, as human beings, how we come to trust people. Right? Now, we're not going to go into detail, but there's a great book, and I encourage you to read it. Anyone that knows me knows that I always talk about this book. It was something that made a difference in my life and my leadership. And in this book, we're not going to go into any detail apart from list these 13 trust behaviours. And if you as a leader or as an individual are able to develop these 13 trust behaviours, you will become a trustworthy human being. Okay? There's some pretty basic things there. I think you're going to get a copy of the presentation or have it available to you, so I'll leave that there and you can look through that at your own leisure. So now, but aren't we here to talk about safety and wellbeing during Covid-19? That's the topic, and what do we learn from that? And one of the things that's going to be very disappointing to all of you this morning is the point that I got to after talking to these 5 different organisations or employees from 5 different organisations and my own experiences during this time is that the effectiveness of any change, controls or action will depend on the strength of the character of the company and its leaders. Okay, so while I'm sure that you all came up with nifty little ideas to put in place to keep people safe and to cope with the restrictions that were introduced as a result of COVID, the reality is, when you manage through a crisis, that's actually one of the easiest times to manage. Why is that? Because the issue is right in everybody's face, right? So everybody can see the train coming down the track or the truck on the wrong side of the road, and everybody knows that we need to take some evasive action. So to get people on board to say we need to do stuff differently is easy in a crisis, because everybody's already there. And the job was made even easier during COVID because the government actually told you all some of the things that you must do. The government decided who could go to work and who couldn't. The government decided on physical spacing requirements. The government decided on special PPE. The government decided on barriers that you needed to put in place in your workplace. The government decided that if people didn't need to be in the office, that they should work from home. So the government was your friend in that space because they actually enabled you just to get on and make some things happen. And if it wasn't the right thing, you could blame the government. Well, if people got grumpy about it, you could blame the government. Okay? So this statement here, the effectiveness of any change, controls or action will depend on the strength of the character of the company and its leaders. So we're talking about the character from a couple of slides ago, right? So your values and your culture. So if you think that you're going to manage a crisis effectively, and all of a sudden you hear that tomorrow the crisis is going to be upon you, and you don't have good company character, you will have some limited success in implementing the changes that you need to continue through that crisis and come out the other end okay. Because some people will just be compliant, or they'll be compliant when you're present. But if you have good company character, and this has to be developed way before the crisis even begins to unfold, then when you implement change or action or require people to do things differently, it will be way more effective because you already have that relationship in place of high trust with your employees. And when you have that in place, even if you make wrong decisions about you brought the wrong PPE or the wrong type of mask or whatever, people will forgive you for that stuff. Okay? They'll forget about that pretty quickly. You say, look, we made a mistake, we ordered these masks. Further studies show these masks are not that effective, so we're going to introduce these masks. Actually, people will get over that pretty quickly, right? Because you already have that high trust relationship and you have good company character. People feel valued, people feel safe, people feel respected, and their dignity is intact. So you'll get some passes around making some mistakes around some of the specifics that you implement during that time, because people genuinely believe that you care about their well-being and safety. You've created an environment, you've demonstrated time after time after time that their safety, their well-being is your highest priority. Okay? Because of your actions, what you do, not just what you say. Okay? Okay, so let's get to some specifics. So there were some pretty cool things that some of these organisations did. What I found is that some of them actually acted according to their values and their culture that they had written on the wall. And some actually acted according to their values and culture. You understand the subtle difference? Okay? So when is it that you're really going to see the real values and the real culture show up? It's in a crisis. Okay? It's in a crisis. It's one thing to have this desired culture and the values that you want up on the wall, and when things are going well, it's somewhat easy to behave in accordance to that, or to be seen to be behaving in accordance to that. But when things turn to custard, and there's a crisis on your hands, and people just revert to self, if that culture is just words on a poster on a wall, or those values are just words on a poster on a wall, when people revert to self, that's when you see their real values and their real desired culture. It'll show up. And everybody will see it for what it really is. Okay? So the first thing really to understand when you are faced with a crisis is to be considerate as to how people are going to react. So in any sort of crisis, you'll get the person who actually is pretty relaxed about it. They're pretty confident in their own abilities, pretty secure in their own space. They'll be pretty relaxed whatever the situation is. You get the people that freak out and start to panic, start running around not sure what to do. You get people that are going to get angry. You're going to get people that actually don't know what's going on. And you get the people who are going to be shocked by what's about to happen. And you get a whole lot of other emotions and responses to that as well. And the good companies that managed through COVID effectively and maintained a sense of safety and well-being with their people, they understand this and they modify their response to incorporate all the different ways that people might be feeling. Right? Do I need to tell this person here not to worry? I don't need to tell him not to worry, because he's already not worried. Okay? So it's about understanding the response of people, how they're reacting, but also understanding that just because I'm relaxed about it today, doesn't mean that in a week's time I might not be angry about it, or I might be confused, or I might be surprised, or I might be freaked out. Okay? So there's not one size fits all here. You have to be continually in touch with your people, checking in on them to see if they've shifted from the place they were into a different place, and whether now their needs have changed as a result of that, and now I have to modify my response to ensure that they still feel safe and that their well-being is still our highest priority. Okay? where does all this, what is going to underpin all of this, do you think, is the most important thing?
You and your leadership.
Hey?
You and your leadership.
Your leadership? So how do I get my leadership out there? I think I heard it over here. Communication, right? Communication is the foundation of all of this stuff, right? Underpinned by your company and leadership character. Communication. So let's talk about communication. And these are, I didn't get these out of a book, these are just my own personal experiences around effective communication. And I'm guilty of not always communicating like this, by the way, okay? So don't think that I've got it sorted. There's enough people in the room that know me well enough to know that I don't always get this right. So one of the things some of the companies that did a great job at during this time did, they talked to me about how often they communicated. All right? They communicated a lot with their people. They didn't just send out an email at the start of the lockdown and say, hey, we've got you all covered and we'll see you in 6 weeks when the lockdown's finished. And don't worry about it in between times. If something changes, we'll contact you in between times. They didn't do that. They communicated regularly, often. They varied their communication style and type. And what I mean by that is that some people like personal face time. Other people are happy to get something in an email. Some companies figured out that actually not all of their employees have email accounts. All right? So an email wasn't going to work. Not everybody wanted to get a phone call at home, so ringing them every 2 days wasn't going to work. So they had to vary their approach in terms of how they were going to communicate with people. And one of the organisations that I talked to set up a company Facebook page. So they figured out that 98% of their employees had a Facebook account, or somebody in the household had a Facebook account. So that proved to be the most effective way. But then they actively managed that Facebook account. They even had the management team, doing funny things together on the Facebook page just to bring a bit of humour in and to keep people connected and wanted to join that page. Make it personal. Another company I talked to, they made it very personal. They preferred talking to people one-on-one on an individual basis rather than the mass communications. There was a need for mass communications as well, but they took a very personal approach to their communications. And the other thing that they did with that, they didn't just consider how their employee may be feeling about what was going on, but they gave consideration to how everybody else in their employee's household may be doing. All right? Understanding that this wasn't just about their employees, but there might be, wife or husband or partner and kids and nieces and nephews or other people living in that household that also might be struggling through this, which may also be impacting on the employee. So they took a really personal approach to get to understand all of those sorts of things. Keep it simple and real. So one company I talked to, they said that they preferred to keep their messages short and in sound bites, lots of them. Now don't send out a 5-page email describing everything that COVID is going to be and every impact that COVID may have on the organisation. But they kept it short and brief, they kept it frequent. They even brought in somebody who was an outsider to describe how companies were going to be supported during COVID and during the lockdown. Just so that individuals had more information around what was likely going to happen to them based on everything that they knew at the time. And by keeping the communication regular, it meant that people didn't have to sit at home and worry about, I wonder if something's changed. Right? They said they were going to pay me throughout all the lockdown. I wonder if they're still going to. Okay? So keep it real, keep it simple. Now the importance about keeping it real is that everybody understands the reality of what a business faces during a crisis, and that if it's not managed well or if things get out of control, that it is going to impact the business. And there may be some people that may lose their job as a result of that. And we all know that, especially outside of Taranaki and in the tourism and hospitality sector, a lot of people lost their jobs. And I think a lot of people in those sectors were probably understood that reality, but what would have made a difference for them is how they are treated in the process that the company went through during that time to still make them feel valued and respected and maintain their dignity, even though at the end of it, it, there was no job for it. Okay? Now I think people can accept that and leave knowing that my employer did everything they could to keep me, and my safety and well-being remained their highest priority throughout this whole process. But at the end of the day, if there's no money, there's no money. There's no job, there's no job. People will accept that. So keep it simple and keep it real. Listen to questions and feedback. Okay, if you go back to the previous slide, and you think about the different way that people react and respond to crisis, just because they're not accepting it like you are, doesn't mean they're bad people or they're being critical of what you're doing. They're just responding the way that they've been wired to respond to certain events. Okay? So sometimes one of the things that I heard from an organisation outside of Taranaki is that sometimes when employees ask questions or raised concerns, the boss saw it as a complaint. He saw it as the employees being negative. Right? What do you think the impact on those employees was when they were raising concerns, asking questions, and then they were being treated as if they just weren't getting on the page? How do you think it made them feel? Do you think it made them feel that their safety and well-being was their highest priority? Probably not. It wouldn't make me feel like that. And even to the point where some people were told, hey, just be grateful that you still have a job. Right? That's the last thing that people need to hear when going through a crisis like that, right? Just be grateful you still have a job. Be grateful that you're getting 75% of your salary. Right? Sure, you can always say there are other people far worse off than you, but at the end of the day, that's not what they get. They know that. You probably know people that have lost their jobs and are in a worse condition than themselves. So listen to questions and feedback and treat it just like questions and feedback. Take it on board. Yeah, you might actually learn something from it. You might learn a little bit more about how people are feeling. You might be able to adjust your approach in order to retain your good company character. Share stories to highlight key messages. People remember stories. Okay? Most of you here today, I'm sure that if you forget everything else, you might remember the story about the fish. Okay? Or you might remember to use that as an example in the future. You might forget the 13 trust behaviours, and you might forget these points here, but you'll probably remember the story about the fish. Okay? So when you can, share a story to highlight key messages. It helps with people remembering what it is you're trying to share. Align your behaviours and actions with communication. Okay, so whatever you say you're going to do, make sure you do it. And do it in a way that people expect you to do it. Alright? So this goes back to also being very clear with your communication and being clear with what you think people are understanding or taking away from your communication, and then behave according to that. If I say your safety and well-being is our highest priority at this time, and you put your hand up and say, hey, I'm concerned about this, and I say, hey, just get on with it and be grateful that you've still got a job, my actions don't align with my statement, do they? Actually, they might be important, but they're not my highest priority, because right now I've just responded in a way that indicates they're not. And the last one here is avoid the curse of knowledge. How many people in the room have heard about the curse of knowledge and know what the curse of knowledge is? Come on, there should be some ethics people here that know what this is. Okay, what I want you to do, because nobody knows what it is, in your tables, what I want you to do is I want somebody on the table to think of a song, and then I want them to tap the song on the table, and I want the other people on the table to guess what the song is. So let's take about a minute to do this, right? So pick who's going to think it's a song in their head. one, I want you to tell the table what the song was, and then I want you to tap it again, with them now having the knowledge of what the song is. Okay, there you go, try that. Most people, when you don't know what the song is, all you hear is tap, 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 right? But once you know the name of the song, and then you hear the tap, you have the song playing in your mind where you hear the tap, and it makes sense, right? Normally the person tapping, for the life of them, can't figure out why you don't know what the song is, because they play the song in your head, and they go, this is so easy, I don't know why you're not getting it. But you're missing one piece of information, and that is the name of the song. And once you have the song in your mind, and then you hear the tapping, even if the tapping's not great, you still kind of piece it together, and then you start to think, oh yeah, it is quite easy, why didn't I get that? So the curse of knowledge is when you present or communicate in a way to everybody, you've done all the research, you've done all the evaluation of the options that you've picked, and you're just getting to the very end of this whole process that you went through to come up with a solution or the actions or the communication. And so you stand up in front of everybody, and for the first time, most of the time all they hear is they have no knowledge of all the work that you've done prior to the delivery of that and the understanding of how you arrived at your recommendation or solution. You think it's a great idea. Everybody else in the room is looking at you going, I have no idea what they just talked about. So to avoid the curse of knowledge, declare your intent. Tell people what it is you want to tell them, and then tell them it. All right? And then tell them again what it was you wanted to tell them. Right? It can be a little tricky at times, but often, you know, in an organisation, especially when you're planning a big change, you probably spend 2 or 3 months with your small management team figuring out what you're going to change and why you're going to change it and how you're going to change it. But all the people on the other end of the message here is what the change is going to be, and not all that thinking process that went into it. So avoid that, and it will help you with your communication being way more effective. Okay, so let's start to wrap things up. So if you have a healthy company character, which is your values and culture, and then you can align your behaviours and actions to what you say you're going to do, you're going to have people feeling respected, valued, and maintain their dignity. Now, even though I have the arrows going one way, there is no linear path with these 3 things. They're all so interconnected. If you're starting at ground zero and you have a really bad company character, then you probably need to start with defining your values and the type of culture you want, and then put things in place that align with that. You will then end up with people feeling. But once it's all in place, it actually can flick backwards and forwards with the employee safety and well-being at the heart of it all. And if you're able to do this on a consistent basis, people will always feel safe, and they will feel that their well-being and safety is your highest priority. And once people feel safe, they become way more engaged. And I don't just mean physical safety, but safe to say what's on their mind, safe to ask questions, safe to push back, safe to do whatever it is they need to do in a respectful way, and not have it be a career-limiting move or a career-limiting question, or they're going to get balled out in front of everybody else because it's a stupid question, all right? You want people to contribute, you want people to talk about what's going on, so that as a leader, you get a real sense of the pulse of the organisation and the health of the culture within. But you take any one of these away and it all falls to pieces, right? If your behaviours all of a sudden don't align with this, it all falls to pieces. If actually you start to become unhealthy in terms of your company character, the rest of it falls to pieces. If people actually stop feeling respected, valued, and don't maintain their dignity, the rest of it falls to pieces. Right? And if you don't have these things in place, your ability to affect change becomes very difficult, all right, and to be successful. Okay, so you've gone through COVID, you've all got great company character, you're all great at communicating, you work in a high trust environment with everybody, you get through COVID, you make some changes. Now I know that you all have all made some specific changes to help people work, where they work, PPE, all those sorts of things, all right? Now that you've got through all that, what have you decided to keep? Because I suspect that right about now, people might have enjoyed working at home or enjoyed the flexibility that COVID brought in terms of their working arrangements. Now that COVID is not necessarily part of our community anymore, do you still allow the same degree of flexibility for your employees? Did you keep that? Or did you stop it, or did you change it? Or do you know why you did what you did? Either keep it, stop it, or modify it. Because if you make too many changes back from where you were in COVID, there's a sense of equity now, right? Well, it was okay for me to do this when the company needed me to do it, but now because I want to do it because it suits my lifestyle a little better, the company says I can't do it. Right? So think long and hard about those things and the impact of saying yes or no is going to have on the long-term character of your organisation. Will it still feel like the safety and well-being is your highest priority, or only when it's convenient? Okay? Or the needs of the business outweigh any of that? And then be very conscious and ask yourself the question, why? Why will we change our mind on this now? What if we have to go into another lockdown and have to repeat all the same measures we just put in place? Will our people be as inclined to still want to do those things, knowing that we said that they couldn't do it or it didn't fit our business needs? So be very clear on the answers to that one. So learning from a crisis, most companies and leaders will automatically review the specific actions taken for effectiveness. So I'm sure that all of your organisations have sat down and done a review of all the things that you did during COVID and gave it a tickler across, said, yep, that was effective, no, that didn't quite work out as we had intended. We did it again, we wouldn't put that control in place, let's put this control in place, right? So like all good companies, you sit down and you do a review of the crisis, like you do any other incident or any other investigation. Well, what I observed that most companies fail to do is they don't do a critical review of how well your leaders reflected the desired core values and culture of your company. Does that make sense? So you look at what you did, but you're not necessarily going to do a deep dive into how you did it. Did all of our leaders demonstrate our desired values and our intended culture? Or did they revert to self and burn some bridges? So I'd encourage all of you today, if you're in a leadership role, to go back and rethink some of this stuff and look at how you implemented change. All right? That's it. Questions? Time or not?
Maybe we'll do questions
After. Okay, thank you.
And I'm sure Brian will hang around if you've got any specific questions to talk to him about after the session, and he's here. So thank you, Brian. I know for myself, going through that, yes, I'll remember the fishing story. I will also take on the values idea and maybe each day the stock take and how I'm portraying my values to my management team and my leadership team and what we're trying to communicate. So certainly some good takeaways from Brian. We've now got David Langford to talk about Plymouth Pipeline. Before COVID, a report was done by Brand saying that the construction sector now has the highest rate of suicide in this country. So we already had a critical problem in the construction sector before COVID. Post-COVID, obviously COVID has had an effect on mental health and wellbeing, and the construction sector is being looked to be the place where there is jobs and there is opportunity to transition people from where they were working into the construction sector. So we've got some pressures here going on with regards to how we treat our people in the construction sector and what we're dealing with regards to mental health and wellbeing. So again, you might hear this with me, I'll let David take that away, and yeah, I'm sure you're going to find what he has to talk about here locally is of influence and interesting.
Morning everybody, my name is David Langford. I'm the Group Manager for Planning and Infrastructure at the Council. Oh no, the man from the Council, what does he know? Is usually how I'm greeted. But my role looks after quite an extensive supply chain, so a lot of you in this room will probably know me because you have contracts with the Council and you've effectively worked as part of my team, albeit as a supplier, not necessarily an employee. What I'm going to talk to you today about is, first of all, a little bit of my own experiences through COVID, and then I suppose the aftermath of COVID, as Francis said, the job losses that we're experiencing in our community, and how particularly central government is looking to the construction sector, to government departments to spend money and create new jobs so that we can keep our people working and keep our economies going. So my background, I actually worked for the first nearly 15 years of my career as a contractor. Did a couple of years working for Downer when I first came to New Zealand, and then before that working for big road construction contractors in the UK, widening motorways, building new bridges, those kind of projects. I often joke that I went into management because I'm a pretty average engineer, so I'm not here to talk to you as an expert in anything. I'm just here to share my experiences, tell you about some of our successes, some of our misfires with creating jobs. I've got one in the front page of the Daily News today because I was slightly ahead of myself and advertised for a water meter project manager. So I don't fuck up often, but when I do, it requires a public apology. So hopefully you can tell I've got a little bit of humility and a bit of sense of humour about myself as well. So my role at the council, I look after our roading team, our free waters teams, that's stormwater, drinking water, wastewater, our flood protection, rubbish collection, asset management, all of our capital projects, our parks, our planning department for the district plan, and our consenting teams that do your land use consent, subdivisions, all of those things. So it's a small part-time job that doesn't really keep me very busy. Hands up, who, during the first COVID lockdown, who got up in the morning and turned the tap on and wondered whether any water was going to come out or not? No? Did anyone even give it a thought? Just a given, it comes out. Anyone, when the water did come out, go, shit, I wonder if this is safe to drink? No, we don't think about it. Who went to the bathroom and made a deposit and hit the flush button and wondered whether that thing's going to go away or not? No? Your rubbish bins all got collected? Yeah. So the council delivers a huge amount of essential services during lockdown, and most of those are within my team. So lockdown was a funny beast for me, because whilst a lot of people were at home and my wife was enjoying spending a huge amount of time with the kids, I was still running around organising my teams, creating bubbles at the water treatment plant so that we didn't infect our treatment plant technicians, because we only had 7 of them, and if we lose one, we can't operate the 4 treatment plants we've got. A lot of stress involved with organising that, but it was also kind of fun, the engineering, the likes fixing problems, and that was a big hairy problem to fix. At the same time, I also wear the business continuity hat for the council. So on top of doing all of that, I was also running around talking to our library managers about shutting the library and what we were going to do with all the people that work there, cancelling events at our venues, telling all the sports clubs that they couldn't use the TSB stadium. What else? Probably a whole heap of stuff. Talking to the unions about, we're still going to pay people, don't worry about it, it's all good. And then I'm also the local controller in a civil defence capacity for the district. So whilst doing those 2 things, I was also supporting TMO, closing roads, closing our parks, liaising with the police, working on a mass burial plan, because if you remember at the beginning, that first lockdown, we didn't know how bad COVID was. So we were busy running around hiring refrigerated units in case the morgues got overloaded with dead people, working with all of the funeral homes so that we could make sure we could still put people through the cemeteries and the crematorium and not have a big pile of dead bodies stack up. That's something I've never done before. And then on top of that, central government came out and said, shovel ready. We wanted to know what we can do to get the country back to work. So tell us about all your big projects that you want money for. So about 2 o'clock in the morning over the Easter weekend, I was writing applications to central government. I asked for about $500 million of funding. I managed to get about 60 million out of them, so not exactly a spectacular success rate, but the 60 million is 60 million, so it's better than nothing. So that was my experience of lockdown. I'm not quite sure I've recovered yet, because straight after that, we're then into how do we actually deliver that $60 million, plus then, you know, the council's going to put your rates up by 12%. I'm sorry, it's mostly my fault, because we're going to spend that money on infrastructure so that we can create more jobs, fix our water pipes that are getting old and breaking, but create more jobs and put people to work. Hopefully, you know, the bad news about Methanex recently, hopefully council and our suppliers can absorb some of those job losses and put people straight back to work. Obviously not doing water meters just yet. So, there's a lot of responsibility on the council to actually deliver those work programs, spend your money as ratepayers really wisely, create those jobs, keep our economy going, deliver essential services. And to do that, I've often talked about the council needing to be a supply chain leader, not a client. If we want to do all of those really good things, instead of just spending money to get new pipes in the ground, we actually have to lead our supply chain and behave like a leader instead of just being a client that says, here's some money, make my problems go away, please, Mr. Contractor or Mrs. Contractor. So supply chain leadership, what is it? Why should you do it? Do a little bit of a quick experiment. You're going to have to be involved now. No knocking, though. I've got a roading job that I want to do. I've written a contract and I put a tender out there. We're going to tender this thing lowest price conforming. Who's involved in procurement in your organisations? Quick hands up. A couple of you. Anyone been involved in a bid process before? A few, yeah, okay. So we've got a roading job. You're going to fix a big bit of road for me. We've got a contract, lowest price conforming. Who out of you guys would like to bid for this work? Hands up, we've got one. Francis. Always Francis. Anybody else? This is kind of like our normal bid process. There's no one who wants to work for the council. Come on, someone, please, bid. Come and work for us, please. I don't know what it is, but I'll do it. It's like the cake maker that tried to bid for the wastewater treatment plant. I think he was in Wanganui, was it? Yeah. Don't know what it is, but I'll have a crack. So we've got a couple of bids. Francis, I've read your bid. You're all good. You're conforming. Kerry, sorry, you don't even know what it is. Your tender's non-conforming, so I put it in the bin. And we had another conforming tender over here. Francis, as always, your price is the sharpest, so we'll give you the job. One of my project managers, like Francis, day one of the job, they're already on site tapping the watch going, liquidated damages, come on, hurry up. You gave us the bottom dollar price and I want the BMW quality. So that's pretty typical for local governments, even central government still behaves like that. And it's a pretty crappy way to treat your suppliers. Let's do this again. I'm advertising for a project manager's job, not water meters. I've written the people specification. I've got a job advert out on Seek. Who wants to come and join my team? I'm a nice guy. Got a nice beard. Good to work for. I always pay your wages. Hands up. Who'd like to come and join my team? Oh, well, someone thought about it over there, but they put a hand there. We've got one over there. Anybody else? Oh, another shy hand goes up there. So I've read both of your CVs. You both look fantastic. What I want to know now is who of you two would work for me for the lowest salary? I'm going to do a reverse auction on this. So I want the cheapest, lowest possible price on this. Already, yeah. Do you want your CV back? Do you still want to work for me? No, haven't totally put you up. So if I take a procurement approach to recruiting people, it's totally ridiculous, isn't it? Mental. No one in your right mind would advertise a job and treat people like that. And yet when we're putting contracts out to the market, my view is it's a massive recruitment process. I'm trying to attract a whole bunch of people that work for another organisation to come and join the council as part of our extended team to deliver our programs of work for us. So if I'm recruiting a bunch of people like that, why do I do it so differently in what clearly is a pretty stupid way? So being a supply chain leader is about recognising that organisations, groups of people, and when we're tendering our process, we're dealing with people, not companies. And we need to lead our people, we need to inspire them, we need to share our vision and values with them and motivate them to perform for us, rather than smacking them around the back of the head with the contract clauses and inducing performance out of them by force. Just a quick example, one of the early things we did, because we've kind of been onto this since before COVID, a lot of you all know Maslow's hierarchy of needs. We started to translate that into what it meant for companies. So your physiological needs, you've got to have a product to sell, you've got to have customers to sell it to, those kind of things. The most basics of just being in business. After that, you need to at least be profitable and have some systems and processes to keep your basic, your organisation safe and functioning. Once you've got those things in place, you can start thinking about customer satisfaction, brand recognition, etc., etc. And then you get higher up, your self-esteem, that might be professional recognition, preferred supplier status, some of those things start creeping in. And then right at the top, you've got your corporate social responsibility and giving back to the community. Now, if we want to really inspire our supply chain to deliver great value for money for our community and do some of that corporate social responsibility stuff as added value, it's completely pointless if down at the bottom here, they're not even profitable and their businesses are starting to fail, because nobody would be focusing up at the top. The same principles apply for individuals as they do for organisations. So this has been something that's guided us as we've gone through our journey to become a supply chain leader instead of a client. So why does all that matter? Why am I telling you all of this stuff, and what does it have anything to do with COVID? Already mentioned the construction sector has been looked to as the big saviour that's going to keep the economy going, going to spend a huge amount of shovel-ready money and put lots of people to work. So a bit of a quick overview of the construction sector. This is part of our public perception, particularly in the local government space, in roading. So when I go to recruit, this is what a lot of people have in the back of their mind. I got these, by the way, like a 30-second Google of roadwork images. This is the stuff that comes up top. I think you can see over here, that's me in the middle, and that's my roading manager, there's my health and safety manager, there's a couple of my project managers, and I think somebody's worked in that, maybe, I'm not sure. And this is in parents' minds as well, when I go to career expos to try and find my next cadets. I see the parents, they find out I work for the council, you can see them kind of put their child behind them and go, you're not talking to my son, you're right. But this is our public perception. And part of that is grounded in that we have a pretty low-skilled workforce. The construction sector, particularly driven by clients who want the cheapest possible price, have stripped out a lot of the investment in the skills and capacity building. And we're suffering for it. We've got low literacy and numeracy rates. About half our workforce struggles to read and write. And from a safety point of view, we hand out SOPs, material safety data sheets, all of those things that say, hey, read this and keep you safe. Well, that information's locked away for nearly half our people because they can't read very well. I think the average age of reading from that survey for the construction sector came out as 12 years old. And that's obviously skewed because that includes people like me and some of my management team that have all got degrees and can read to a much higher age. We've got an ageing workforce. I know within the council, within my own infrastructure team, about 45% of my staff will have reached retirement age within the next 10 years. For some of my teams, my development engineers, for example, at one point the entire team would be retiring within about 18 months of each other. The entire team gone, all of the institutional knowledge that we had out the door and lost. And that's pretty typical. It's not unusual for a lot of construction companies. And then as Francis mentioned, we've got this issue that I think has always been there. It's now just kind of coming to light and gaining a little bit of publicity about our mental health statistics in the construction sector. There's a whole heap of other challenges, and I'll let you read those at your leisure when you get the PowerPoint slides later. But the main ones at the bottom, that post-COVID surge, we're already a struggling sector that's got skill shortage. We don't have enough people, and we're looking to it to say, hey, you're gonna dig us out of this problem, get the diggers out, employ some more people, go for it. We picked up millions of dollars of shovel-ready funding. We've delivered some projects already and created new jobs that we put people to work in. We've got obviously the big thermal drying project is the biggest one, which we're now starting the tendering process for to find our main contractor to deliver that project. And I know some of you in the room are involved in that procurement process already. And I've already mentioned the rates rise to fund more infrastructure work. So how are we going to find all these people? And how are we going to train them so they can actually do good work? How are we going to train them so that we can keep them safe when they're on job sites which are inherently dangerous environments? And that's where our infrastructure talent pipeline comes in. And this is the main thing that I wanted to talk to you about. Prior to COVID and the council's journey to be a supply chain leader, we'd already started to think about how do we address some of those problems that I've just stepped you through. And we'd workshopped with our suppliers a vision of the future. And we said, in 10 years' time, what's our workforce going to look like if we fixed all of these problems? And we came up, it's got three strands to it. The first one is about the makeup of our team, so having the right people in the right jobs, doing the right work. And we said things like we'd have a nice smooth age profile, we'd have enough people to meet the workload demands, our people would be customer focused, what else is up there? Good gender and cultural diversity, and really collaborative, good collaborative people who like working together across the boundaries of teams and across the boundaries of organisations. The second strand was how we would operate. And this is about having good, strong leadership, not just from individual companies, but from client organisations as well, that truly bought into and believed in the values of being a supply chain leader. Those values would cascade down the supply chain, and we would choose our partners strategically based on the alignment of our values, not just on who offered us the cheapest possible price. Focused on continuous improvement. I'll do better tomorrow than I did today. It's my general ethos. Share a common vision about building our lifestyle capital for the district. Be focused on outcomes for our community. And instead of looking to strip costs out of what we do, we're trying to figure out how we maximise the value we create for our community every time you spend your money as ratepayers. And then finally, achieving excellence. Good operational excellence models in place that guide how we deliver the services for our community. Our people are healthy, they're productive, and they're underpinned by healthy lifestyles, work-life balance, drug and alcohol free, all those kind of things come into that. We plan for succession so we can manage the knowledge of our institutions. Our people are highly skilled because we invest in developing them, training them, coaching them, mentoring them, doing all of those things. We've addressed the literacy and numeracy challenges, and as a result, our workforce is highly engaged, as Brian said. Our actions matching our words, and people believe in what we say because they've seen us investing in delivering this vision. So that's been a real guide for us, particularly in this post-COVID world. It's not just about grabbing bodies and throwing them at the work. And don't worry if they're not safe. Don't worry if they don't have the skills to produce good quality workmanship. Let's just get people to work. This vision actually safeguards us from doing it poorly and tries to guide us to create value whilst we're doing those things. So we formed the Talent Pipeline Partnership, and this is the council and then a group of our key suppliers, Francis Whitaker Civil Engineering on Downer, and in fact, you can see the logos there, and we've added a few more locals as well. Red Jacket and Plan and Platform have just recently signed up to join the partnership. And it's really a coalition of those organisations that work for council that share the values and believe that we need to start tackling all of those problems that I've just described, and are committed to delivering the council's projects, our shovel-ready work, and doing it in a way that creates jobs, looks after our existing workers and helps upskill them, whilst bringing more people into the sector at the same time. So again, I'm an engineer at heart, so the model that underpins this, and this is probably the hero piece of my presentation, but our model's based on a pipe, so I'm an engineer, I think about pipes and roads. I know it's sad. But what does it look like? So, first of all, the Talent Pipeline Partnership works with particularly the school sector. So we've gone around pretty much every secondary school in Taranaki. We meet regularly with all of their career advisors. We're partnering with WIT to deliver a lot of our training and education programs, which you'll see in a moment. But the first step in our pipe is to start raising the awareness around the careers and opportunities that are going to be available in the construction sector. Informatrics, have done some economic analysis. I think they reckon there's going to be, in the next 4 years, about 1,800 new job openings, all within the construction sector within Taranaki. So that's a huge, huge amount of people to find and employ and train. So, in the schools, raising awareness. We're doing things like going to the career expos as a partnership. So instead of scrapping over where we're going to get our next cadet from, we're actually there to promote the construction sector as a whole, with the idea that we're going to create a pool of talent that we can all recruit from, rather than just fighting over our little scrap of it. We go to school talks, promote careers in the construction sector to students, help them make the right education choices to get on the pathway to the career that they want. We've got a website set up, videos that promote the sector, promote careers, and I talked about those career advisors, the Kate group, that we meet with quarterly. More to educate them so they can sell the construction sector to their students. After that, we're looking to create opportunities for people to explore the construction sector. So we take people on site visits. The 2 new reservoirs that we're building out at Hanwood Road and Manning Road for our drinking water supply. I've lost count of how many school tours and community groups have been through those things. We do, I think, quarterly tours of our water and wastewater treatment plants. And Francis, you've hosted heaps of visits to your project sites for us. And again, give people a chance to look around and go, is this for me? Do I want to work in this sector? And at the same time, they get to see us doing the cool stuff that we do. And it's not just about fixing potholes and doing stop-go traffic control. We've also put in place accelerator and gateway programs with Taranaki Futures. So students are coming to work for partner organisations. They're getting credits towards their NCE, and they're getting work experience. We're also putting them through some of the basic skills training. So whilst the school students are with us, we'll put them through a traffic control course. So when they leave school, they've already got a ticket that makes them that much more employable for some of the contractors in the room. After that, try and help prepare people for careers in the sector. So we're running a trades academy program called Build a Bridge at the moment. There's a bridge on the Huatoku Walkway that's probably about 10 years past its use-by date. We need to replace it. So WIT are working with us, Taranaki Futures and a few of our contractors and consultants. That we've got a new bridge designed, and now we're training the students by letting them build the bridge. And once it's done, assuming it passes all the QA checks, we'll crane it into position on the Huatoku Walkway. And there'll be about a dozen students in about 6 months' time, still in school, pointing at that bridge to their mates going, I built that. I helped build the lifestyle capital for the district. And hopefully we've got our hooks on them because they want to stay local, they want to build the next cool project in Taranaki, and they want to come and work for us and start filling some of these jobs that we've got. Pre-employment training, looking at how we can actually take some of the risk out of our work, again working with WIT to see if we can use some of the land at our old landfill site, turn it into a greenfield skills training facility. So if you want to put someone in an excavator for the first time, you can do it in an environment that's safe because you know that there's not a 33,000 kV cable under your feet, and they can have a play where the cost of mistakes isn't punishing, both financially because of rework and also from a health and safety risk point of view. Early days at the moment, the business case is still under development for that one, but a really cool opportunity, which then flows into onboarding people. So part of what I've done at the council is, seeing this big workload coming, I've restructured my team to create a whole heap of new entry-level positions. Instead of going and recruit for lots and lots of project managers to deliver all these projects, about 50% of the new roles are going to be entry-level, cadet or graduate-level project managers. That means we can take school leavers, put them into those, fund them for further education part-time, or we can grab people from other sectors. So if there's a professional person that's losing their job in the hospitality sector, for example, and they've got the right attitude and aptitude, but they don't have the technical skills, come over here. There's a junior project manager role for you. We'll pay to train you to be a project manager, but just bring your general good attitude and your good ability to the job, and we'll help fill in the rest. At the same time, the actual boots on the ground jobs, the operators that are going to dig the trenches and lay the pipes and all of those things, working with MSD to get funding in so that we can run crash course training sessions in blocks. So we can recruit 20, 30 people at once, put them all on a block course, they all go through, they get their safety tickets, traffic control, wheels, tracks and rollers, everything else that you need just to get the basic competency to be on site and not be a liability to yourself and your workmates. Put them through it, and then they can go and get their first jobs. And that'll be hopefully delivered in our nice new training hub at the old Langford. We're also working with the Chamber of Commerce. Another opportunity is they're intercepting people that are losing their jobs because of COVID before they get to MSD, and then they're referring them onto the council, and we're trying to find places for them either in our new restructured team or with our contractors. So again, we can stop people from having to completely lose their job and end up on welfare, grab them, retrain them and redeploy them. And then once we've got people in place, we've got to continue that on-the-job learning and their development. So we've run literacy and numeracy training programs. We've got the Tertiary Education Commission last year to fund a literacy and numeracy workplace training program. They gave us $100,000, we've delivered it. We put about 23 of our people through that program in the end, and they've all come out the other end graduated with some basic life skills improved, as well as workplace skills. I've already mentioned the funding for the cadets and the scholarships. Again, we're looking to partner with WIT, so our children or people redeploying from other sectors can work and stay local. They can learn local at our Polytech and then have employment locally. And we don't have to have people leaving the region because there's no jobs here. And then cadet sharing. So through the partnership, rotating our cadets around, so they may come and work for the council for 6 months, and then they'll pop over to one of the contractors for a year, and we'll take one of their cadets, and just broadening the experience of those people and giving them the opportunity to find a new home in a career that they're going to enjoy and find fulfilling in the absence of whatever it is that they previously lost. And then once people are settled in their new job and they're up to kind of full productivity, how do we start preparing them for career advancement so that we're training the future leaders of our organisations to take over when I eventually get fired because I advertised too many water metering jobs in one go or something. So fast track management courses, those kind of things. That's an area that we're still kind of a little weak on and still trying to figure out what it is we're going to do in that space, but the concept is that. So that's our talent pipeline, and as a kind of general principle, the education sector starts off big and tapers out over time, and the industry sector's effort starts off a little small and ramps up over time. So that's our talent pipeline. I will give it a plug if there's any of you in this room that aren't already part of the talent pipeline and you're like, oh, I want to get a piece of that for our organisation, please feel free to come up and bail me up at the end of this. It's a shameless sales pitch, I know, but why not? A few of our successes so far. So you've got some of our Gateway students out on site. I think that was with Fulton Hogan there's a picture of us at the Career Expo. We've got ourselves all branded up with banners, and we managed to get a bootleg copy of the flyover of the Map Messenger project. Completely unofficial, and I technically do not have that. Our laboratory at the wastewater treatment plant, we had a Gateway student in there, and she is out testing water quality samples from the monitoring boards that we have surrounding the wastewater treatment plant, making sure we're not leaking anything we shouldn't be. So I will show the video. It's fine because the music's terrible.
Yes.
I just finished, this is one of our early promotional videos, if it works. Are you hooked up on the internet?
No.
No? Okay, it won't work. I know. Hang on.
We can share the link later.
Yeah. All right. Technology's letting me down. So Taranaki Futures has got a link to the video up there. It's just a promotional video. It shows kind of 2-3 minutes, a little snapshot of all of the cool careers that are available within the construction sector. We use it to kind of get the students and people engaged and starting that conversation with us around how finding a career within the construction sector. So, yeah, just to wrap up, that stopped working now. Post-COVID, real big, huge pressures on the construction sector to lift its game, to deliver all of these jobs and the economic stimulus on top of all of the problems and the baggage we were carrying before COVID. It's an interesting and exciting challenge. Hopefully you can see some of the role the council is playing in this for our community at large, and really keen to share our experiences, hopefully inspire you to do a little bit of this within your own organisation, and feel free to come and talk to me afterwards if you think there's a place for you guys to get involved in the talent pipeline itself. Happy to take any questions from that. Or not? You're a shy bunch this morning. Cool. I'm not sure yet.
Thank you, David. I can certainly say from my own organisation being involved in it, you need to think bigger than your organisation. For us working in the construction sector, it's about our industry, and it's actually about our local community too, and what we can do as leaders to support what's going on here. So we're nearly at 9 o'clock, so what we'll do is we're just going to have a brief conversation around BeSafe Taranaki, what it's like to be part of the membership, and what BeSafe Taranaki is actually up to these days, and then what we're doing moving forward. So just start, yep. So BeSafe Taranaki, we are a trust. So at the moment, these are our trustees. Again, the slide show stuff we'll send out to everyone so they've got the package of information. We've also videoed today, so we'll also have that available to the members as well. So move on. Membership's growing. We have a number of local organisations now as part of our membership. If you aren't a member and you think that you'd like to be a member, then we have employed Lois Eggers here as our administrator. She came on just before COVID last year, so trying time for her coming into BeSafe Taranaki, and then all of a sudden we're in a lockdown and she's like, what am I doing for this job? But she certainly is our powerhouse that's making things happen for us in BeSafe Taranaki. So I think your information is readily available on the website.
There's some leaflets over there too.
And leaflets there as well, so you can, if you want to contact Lois, then grab a leaflet and have all her contact details. So we also have community partners. BeSafe Taranaki has always been sort of networked and actively involved with the Business Leaders Health and Safety Forum, obviously the TCSG, Taranaki Construction Safety Group, the Plymouth Injury Safe, and ACC, and WorkSafe in New Zealand as well. Our benefits, I'd say BeSafe has actually been around for a number of years now. What we think that our benefits are is obviously the network that we've created here locally among our community of organisations and industries. There's certainly work that we're doing. Be engaged sessions like this one is something that we are working on having more of. We also have an arm called Be Aligned, and I'll get Kerry to talk about that in 2 seconds' time. But certainly there's a lot of resource and information share that we can provide. Our website www.besafe.nz, there's information around Be Aligned, what's happening there, the Be Engaged sessions, and also we have incident learning. So if you're in your company and you're wanting some stuff, some information share, go to our website, and there's lots and lots of cool information that you can use for toolbox meetings, or just meetings in general, or information sharing around good health and safety and wellbeing comms. Be Aligned, I'm doing this really quick, so Be Aligned, I'll get Kerry to talk to that, because Kerry Williamson is from OMB is the lead on Be Aligned. You have to.
Yeah, thank you, Francis. So it's great to see everyone here this morning. Great to see a really diverse audience too. BeSafe Taranaki's had a long history, but it was founded in the petrochemical side of the business, side of industry rather. And over the years, particularly in the last few years, we've actually seen that really diversify. And I think what it's given is this Be Aligned team, which I'm a champion of through the Trust, is an opportunity to actually share common practices and best practices across a lot of industry space. So what we are is we are a collaboration group. We operate at 2 levels. I have a steering team made up of leaders of members of the BeSafe Taranaki members. And then we have a working group, which is a bunch of very talented HSE and other professionals who get together on a regular basis to actually work topics and create material and product that is actually shared on this Be Aligned website and across the business. Types of things we're doing, we have a really good training matrix. So if any industry is basically looking and saying, hey, what is the basis of HSE training that I should have in my business? You can come onto this site, you can pick this up, and it basically is an NZQA aligned training matrix for all types of jobs that you would have in your business. It's all there, it's done. It's basically a starting point that you don't need to actually think about right from a blank sheet of paper. You've got a starting point. As we said, we've got a lot of learning materials, got a lot of videos. We've just produced a bunch of road safe videos, and specific to road safe for Taranaki. Talking about driving on sites, talking about the challenges that we have with Taranaki roading, and you'll see local companies involved in that makeup. So you're not looking at someone foreign, you're looking at, when you share this in your safety moments, you can actually see the mountain, you can see in Plymouth. It feels real, and it creates a very different sense of message. And then we have our monthly safety topics, which are prepared by the working group. Really good quality materials, and we try and align these on a monthly basis so that our contractors, if they're going to a specific site, hopefully getting that same message across a number of sites to say, hey, the focus of this month is X. So we've got a lot going on with that working group, a really talented group of people, really committed to the cause. Their businesses are behind them and supporting this, and I'm really proud of how far we've actually come on the Be Aligned. So it is an invite. We're actually quite full at the moment in terms of people. In terms of the actual work group, we have probably enough right now. But that doesn't mean that we can't actually incorporate more and start thinking about different ways of working. So, as Francis said, if you want to join BeSafe Taranaki as a member, please come along, bring your company along, but also think about how you can contribute to the ground level of what this organisation actually means. And it means about basically making sure that our Taranaki workers go home safe every day. So thank you for the opportunity.
Okay, so the other stream that we have is Be Engaged. Obviously, as I said, this session this morning was led by Be Engaged. Be Engaged is really around, again, communication, collaboration and collective understanding. Just kind of the things that we have done in the past. We've worked with WorkSafe, we've worked with business leaders, we've worked with ACC, CHASANS, and obviously local community leaders. We are really fortunate in Taranaki that we have a lot of talent here in the health and safety space. So we have some really good communicators here locally. I mean, we're lucky with David and Brian this morning. I know that there's other health and safety professionals out there that actually are looked at nationally about what they're talking about. So we have a really good resource tab here for BeSafe Taranaki. What we are looking at presenting to in the future is around, obviously, working with the Business Health and Safety Leaders Forum. We're really lucky they like us here in Taranaki. They like Francois, loves coming here and talking to the masses. So as soon as we can get him to come on down, we will. We've got a really good, as I said, safety professionals network through NZISN here locally. So BeSafe also works with them and taps into what they're doing. I know that they've got some good speakers coming up too. We like to work with the regulator, and that's something that we're going to focus on very soon is the regulator and our local roads, because we all know that they're pretty appalling, and our driving experience here can be shocking, and our road safety statistics are not that good. So that's certainly a focus topic that we are. And then again, the Be Aligned, they're working on so many different things that why not use their material and do another engaged session around what they're about. So if anyone does have any ideas and thinks, hey, this is a really important health, safety or wellbeing topic for us to talk about here locally, by all means, see Lois, see myself. We're more than happy to put in workshops, focus sessions, engagements like this around anything that's kind of current and need to know more information about. I think that's our wrap. I hope you've enjoyed this morning. Again, thank you, Brian. Thank you, David. Hope everyone's taking something away from their talks this morning. They're around, so if you didn't ask a question, but there is something that burning, go and see them. Easy to talk to. And if you, as I say, you've got any other questions around BeSafe Taranaki or any other ideas, see Lois. So thank you. Thank you for your time.